Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Pretty shocking stuff. Donald Trump has blown up on Marjorie Taylor Greene after her interview on 60 Minutes aired. He went ahead on Truth Social and wrote a very lengthy post attacking her and also attacking the owners of Paramount for allowing the interview to air. Take a look here at what he posted on Truth Social earlier. The only reason Marjorie Traitor Brown Green turns brown under stress went bad is that she was jilted by the president of the United States. Certainly not the first time she has been jilted. Too much work, not enough time, and her ideas are now really bad. She sort of reminds me of a rotten apple. Marjorie is not America First nor MAGA because nobody could have changed her views so fast, and her new views are those of a very dumb person. So the entire first portion here is him just absolutely ridiculing her. That was proven last night when washed up Trump-hating 60-minute correspondent Leslie Stahl, who still owes me an apology from when she attacked me on the show, and he goes on talking about the Biden laptop issue. My real problem with the show, however, and this is what I really want to touch on here, wasn't the low IQ traitor. It was the new the new ownership of 60 Minutes, Paramount, who would allow a show like this to air. They are no better than the old leadership who just paid me millions of dollars for fake reporting about your favorite president, me. Since they bought it, 60 Minutes has actually gotten worse. Oh well, far worse things can happen. P.S. I hereby demand a complete and total apology, though far too late and for to be meaningful, from Leslie Stahl and 60 Minutes for her incorrect and libelous statements about Hunter's laptop. President Donald J. Trump. So, huge, lengthy post here. And it's not surprising to see that Donald J. Trump was, of course, going after Marjorie Taylor Greene. However, what is really interesting and worth conversation is this last portion here, because why did he specifically talk about the ownership of 60 Minutes, which is Paramount? Well, he talked about the ownership of 60 Minutes, one, because of the fact that it's owned by David Ellison, the son of Larry Ellison, who are now basically the media empire owners. Larry Ellison is currently in the process of purchasing TikTok to monitor your data and make sure you love Israel. His son, David Ellison, is also now basically trying to buy all of mainstream media. When I say all, I mean literally all. The Paramount empire. He was in a bid to purchase Warner Bros. And he lost the bid, luckily. It's the one better of the two evils. However, CNN is still on the table for next quarter. And regardless, Donald Trump now is saying, hey, David Ellison, you're a pro-Israel Zionist. How are you allowing somebody who dislikes Israel to air such an interview? Why are you allowing an interview like this to air? And the reason this is so shocking is because of the fact that what Donald Trump is basically saying is that he understands that David Ellison purchased the mainstream media in order to make sure that you love Israel. It's either one of two ways. Either he knew that David Ellison purchased the media empire to make sure that it's pro-Israel, so he's shocked that somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's anti-Israel, would be featured. That's either one. Or he has a relationship with David Ellison in which he would have assumed that David Ellison would have never allowed such a thing to air, despite the fact and regardless of the fact that she loves Israel. And I'm going to be, she is anti-Israel. And I'm going to be honest, guys, I think it's a much more the former rather than the latter. And that's the issue there, because what we're seeing now is Donald Trump outwardly stating that he supports the censorship of David Ellison's efforts to stop anti-Israel criticism in mainstream media. Isn't it shocking? Here's the guy who has campaigned his entire campaign on freedom of speech, the end of political correctness, and now all of a sudden we're seeing him promote and support and condone that agenda that he was seemingly against for so long. So I'm going to go ahead and play just a couple clips of the interview that he gave with 60 Minutes. And let's go ahead and dissect them, because it's pretty interesting stuff that Marjorie Taylor Greene touched on that I want to go over with you guys. So here's the first clip that I'm going to go ahead and show. Take a listen to this.
One of the president's biggest beefs with Greene was about her harping on Jeffrey Epstein.
We did talk about the Epstein files, and he was extremely angry at me that I had signed the discharge petition to release the files. I fully believe that those women deserve everything they're asking. They're asking for all of it to come out. They deserve it. And he was furious with me.
What did he say?
He said that it was going to hurt people. I had asked him, these women are the ones that were hurt. They were raped at 14, they were raped at 16. I watched them stand in front of the press trembling, their bodies shaking as they were telling their stories, many of them for the first time. And I had told him, I said, you know, you have all kinds of people come in the White House. Have these women come in the White House. These women deserve to be heard.
He said to you.
So let's just stop right there because there's a lot to dissect there. Donald Trump is saying, and this is what's so interesting, he's saying that it's going to hurt a lot of people releasing the Epstein files. He called it the Epstein hoax for months now, and all of a sudden, he flip-flopped. I thought it was so weird. The moment that he flip-flopped, I was like, well, there's either one of two things could have happened. One is he had a full change of heart within just overnight because he was literally criticizing it the night before. And then all of a sudden he woke up one morning and he decided, you know what, let's just go ahead and sign it. We're going to release it. So either one, he had a change of heart and he had a sense of a God-given moral clarity, or two, something happened or he was informed that something happened to those files that would no longer hurt those individuals that are on it. As in, some of the files have been destroyed, some of the names have been redacted. Something happened, okay? And I'm going to say I much more believe the fact that there was some sort of corruption with the files. Some things have been folded, some things have been hidden, because nobody flips like that overnight for something they were so fearful of. They were so fearful of it. He destroyed his entire relationship with her, and he criticized her and ridiculed her and name called her over the release of these files. And now all of a sudden he's all on board. Let's do it. Let's go ahead and release them. Something happened. People talk about the fact that he opened up an investigation with the Department of Justice to investigate the Epstein files, which means that he's going to be pulling aside certain files for national security reasons, quote unquote. And maybe those are the files that have specific names that he's trying to protect, or maybe they just went ahead and destroyed them. Who's to say? I don't think we're going to actually get anything substantial out of them. Otherwise, he wouldn't have allowed the bill to pass. I believe that's just fact. So that's the first thing. Now let's listen to the next part of the interview that she gave, because there's a lot to go into here. This part is it's pretty shocking. So take a listen to this.
She's not afraid to be an outlier. She's the only Republican member of Congress to call the war in Gaza a genocide. And why did you vote against the Antisemitism Awareness Act?
Since I've been a member of Congress, we've had several resolutions that constantly denounce anti-Semitism. I've already voted denouncing anti-Semitism many times before. It becomes an exercise that they force on Congress, and I simply got tired of it.
Is there no value in having the United States Congress reaffirm the fact that they denounce anti-Semitism in the face of a growing issue, a growing problem?
We don't have to get on our knees and say it over and over again when we
Get on our knees?
Yes, we do not have to get on our knees.
Well, most members of Congress disagree with you.
Well, most members of Congress take donations from AIPAC, and I don't.
There we go. She said it. Now, this part is really important people understand. The interviewer of 60 Minutes, she's shocked. Oh my God. How do you not support the anti-Semitism bill? This is why I'm going to tell you that I'm shocked that every member of Congress, aside from her, voted on it. I believe Thomas Massie just voted present. This is why it's so shocking, okay? The bill, the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, that she voted no on, is a bill that uses a third-party working definition of anti-Semitism in the law, which means that in the legislation itself, it is using a third-party website link that in the bill it says, go to this link to hear about the definition of anti-Semitism that we are against. Okay. Now it's a website and it's a third party website. It's not a website ran by the government. It's not the government making that definition. It's a third party from the Holocaust Remembrance website making a definition that's codified into law now. You see the issue with that? That we're now allowing Congress to give a third party the right to alter laws, because that's what they're doing when they're giving the definition to a third party. The reason that is such a big concern is because how do you think that third party is going to go ahead and make the definition of anti-Semitism? Do you think it's going to include criticism of Israel? Do you think, well, let's go ahead. Let's go through the working definition of anti-Semitism and see how they define anti-Semitism, because shocker, it is. It is. It has everything to do with Israel, which is why it's great that she didn't actually vote on this BS. So here's the website, and it's the working definition of anti-Semitism. That in of itself is an issue, because what the hell does that mean? That means that this definition is working. It's going to change over time. So over time, something new pops up that they don't like, toss it in there. It's anti-Semitic if you criticize Israel. Let's go through some of them. Let's just take a listen to this. Adopt the non-legally binding working definition of anti-Semitism. This is what they try to do. And here's some of the bullet points that they deem as anti-Semitic, okay? Accusing Jewish people of being more loyal to Israel than the interests of their own nations. Denying the Jewish people their right to self-determination by claiming that the existence of Israel is a racist endeavor, okay? Drawing comparisons of contemporary Israeli policy to that of the Nazis. That's anti-Semitic by their definition. It doesn't say Jewish views. It says Israeli policy. So a foreign nation's policies, you can't compare that to a political group back in Germany. That's anti-Semitic, okay? Holding Jews collectively responsible for the actions of the state of Israel. This is the definition that Congress went ahead and voted on and stated that is anti-Semitic. They approve of the fact that this is how the working definition, which can constantly be updated, believes it's anti-Semitic. So you're telling me, and this is really bad. You're telling me that if Israel, which Israel is doing, is taking action that is directly in alignment with actions that Hitler proposed, now all of a sudden we can't state that because of the fact it's anti-Semitic? And that's okay. And we have legislation in Congress using a URL link to a third-party website, and that's codified into law. Do you realize how we're now giving the responsibility of legislation to a third-party website that can change it whenever it wants? That is a huge security issue. There's an issue with that, because they can just add whatever they want, and all of a sudden Congress is going to have a law that says, okay, this is what we deem as anti-Semitic. I've previously made videos on the Warsaw Ghetto. It was a ghetto that Germany flattened back in the 1940s, completely wiped it out. Okay, 40,000 Jews were wiped out during the Warsaw Ghetto uprising. And if you put photos of the Warsaw Ghetto, which I've done, and you put it side by side with photos of Gaza, they look one and the same. Absolutely flattened. Germany flattened the place just to ruins. Okay. Now, if I state that what Israel is doing, and I've done it in a video, and I did it on TikTok, and it garnered over 2 million views. And then, of course, TikTok took down the video, and I posted the video on Instagram, and then I got a violation. So if I state that there's comparisons here between what Germany did to the Warsaw Ghetto and what Israel is doing to Gaza, which is true, they both flattened the areas. That's anti-Semitic now by this working definition. And the government of the United States is going to also approve of that messaging that it's anti-Semitic. You see how that's an issue? What else is in their legislation that's really important to talk about? They state that it's anti-Semitic to state that the state of Israel as an endeavor is racist. It's a racist ideology. Zionism is racist. Okay, just for those who don't know, the United Nations voted back in the 1970s that Zionism is a racist endeavor. It was voted on in the General Assembly, overwhelmingly approved, except for, of course, the Western nations, Canada, the United States, many parts of Europe. Everybody else in the world approved of the fact that it was a racist ideology. Now, it was removed from the UN General Assembly and revoked in 1991. Why? It wasn't because there was a change in moral clarity. It was because of the fact that in 1991, George H.W. Bush was trying to have a Middle East peace conference in Madrid of that year between Israel and the Palestinians. And he wanted to make sure that Israel would come to the table. So he was pushing the United Nations to remove the fact that they believe that Zionism is a racist ideology, and they did. It had nothing to do with moral clarity. It was so that way they could push the Israelis to get to the Middle East Peace Conference. I also made a previous video, by the way, that the Mossad attempted to assassinate George H.W. Bush at the Middle East Peace Conference in Madrid of that year. Later on, I'll go ahead and put it somewhere up here so you guys can click the card link, or you can scroll down my YouTube channel and be able to see that. So that is now what the state of what the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism includes, and we're supposed to just approve of that. And what's crazy, and this is why this lady at 60 Minutes, this interviewer really starts to tick me off a little bit, is because she's shocked. Oh my God, Marjorie Taylor Greene, you don't vote on this legislation? It's as if it's normal that it's as if it's normal to approve of legislation that's giving a third party the right to dictate US policy, as if she's normalizing that sort of ridiculousness. Marjorie Taylor Greene is the only one who voted against it. I believe Thomas Massie might have voted present. I find it ridiculous that not every member of Congress noted there's a huge issue with using a third-party website that can update the definition whenever it wants as legislation. I think that's a huge issue. Do you guys see? Please, I'd like to see more legislation. I'd like to see what other legislation, because I think any legislation that is using a URL link, I think there is an issue there. And then again, of course, if I show you guys, let's see here. This is just, of course, just a Google AI summary. Yes, a significant portion of the U.S. Congress supports the act and actively promotes the IHRA definition. And of course, it's going to talk about specifically the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act that Marjorie Taylor Greene refused to sign. Bipartisan bills, Congress passed laws like Combating European Anti-Semitism Act of 2017, because of course we have to worry about what Europe's up to, and reintroduced the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act of 2023 and 2025, requiring federal agencies, particularly the Department of Education, to use the IHRA definition. Who pushed it? Mike Lawler, Josh Guthenheimer, Max Miller, Jared Muskowitz have championed these bills. Mike Lawler, dude, this guy, oh my gosh, if you want to see somebody that is just insufferable, just go on Mike Lawler's Instagram or X page. He says he's a Christian. I personally, I think he's a traitor for a lot of reasons. So we have politicians that are heavily bought out by the Israel lobby pushing legislation that is taking away your freedoms by giving a company, an organization, the right to dictate definitions of anti-Semitism that include criticism of Israel that are now going to be enforced on institutions and schools that are funded by federal dollars, that are given grants and that are backed by the US government. So now we have institutions that are forced to not be able to criticize Israel. If you're taking a class on foreign policy in whatever college or university, and your foreign policy professor states the current policies of Israel are similar to Nazi Germany, that's a foreign policy. You're just analyzing policy. You're putting here's all of the policies of the Nazi party. Here's all of the policies of the Likud party. What do you guys see that is similar? Here's all of the policies of Russia. Here's all of the policies of China. Compare. What do you see that's similar? That professor is now going to get fired. That's anti-Semitic now. This is just an analysis of policy. But while our government is using a URL link that's based on a working definition, it can constantly be changed by a third-party website, and now our institutions are required by law to follow a definition that the government can't even control, yet voted on. They can't control it, yet they voted on it. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is looking like the bad guy for not voting on this, for not voting on legislation that allows third parties that allows Americans or that stops Americans from using their freedom of speech, because now it's considered hate speech to criticize a foreign government in some aspects. There is a huge issue there. And the fact that Donald Trump is supportive of this sort of stuff. What's going on, guys? What is going on at this point? It feels like we're being choked. Okay. Donald Trump talking about David Ellison, as well, stating that he's surprised that David Ellison is not controlling and stopping anti-Israel critics like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Maybe also because he has this personal relationship with him. I'll make a whole separate video on Donald Trump's relationship with the Ellisons. Do you guys see what's happening? And I'm so upset that Marjorie Taylor Greene, if she's having death threats against her son, which is what she stated, then I don't want to put her in a position where her life is truly going to be at risk for the fact that I want her in Congress. But what we all know what's going to happen, come her leaving office, they're going to plop in an AIPAC shill. Takes one more member of Congress out. And we're living in a bipartisan Israel-occupied government. That's what's going on. They did the same thing to George Latimer taking over Jamal Bowman, and I've talked a lot about on my channel. I don't support either party. I truly just support people that are anti-establishment, that are pro-America first. And I think that Marjorie Taylor Greene did that in many ways. Some I don't agree with, some that I do. But what I will say now is that I truly believe she stuck to her core values, regardless of whether or not I believe she did that in a way that I necessarily agree with. Okay, that's the one thing I'll say. I God forbid Thomas Massie leaves office. God forbid. I like, truly, that man is now, he's really a lone wolf. He does have people on the left now that will stand by him with bipartisan legislation. We see Ro Khanna. Okay, but there's nobody else on the right now. Rand Paul, I guess. Who else? We know it's not going to be whoever replaces Marjorie Taylor Greene. They're not going to allow somebody else to come in that's going to basically replace her and just be another face of her, another face of anti-Israel criticism. So it's going to only increase anti-Israel sentiment, which, hey, I'm all for it. I'm all for waking more people up. The more they try to control us, the more they try to restrict us from doing certain things, the more people are going to get real fed up real soon. So that's currently the situation now we're in, where we have our government using external sources in legislation, where we have individuals that do criticize Israel and our government face death threats, where we have the president of the United States shilling to a foreign nation, where we have our politicians blackmailed by the Mossad for doing God knows what with American children. That's the political environment that we're in. And if you start calling that out, well, you're going to have your life destroyed. And it doesn't matter if you sing songs to little kids like Miss Rachel, you'll be accused of anti-Semitism. It's all, I have had enough. I've had absolutely enough. This is ridiculous. Anyways, guys, that's really it for this video. If you found it interesting, would appreciate it if you support my channel and give it a thumbs up as well. Super gifts and chats also help me do this and reach more people and do this as a full-time job. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye.